Awesome. So now we're going to work on spin. And I know some of you already know spin or twirl or some variation thereof. So if you already know these things, you can skip ahead to a different task. But for now, we're going to use spin in a bunch of areas with our tricks class, tricks and games. Spin is effectively getting the dog to spin in a full circle one way or the other. Couple things to keep in mind. One, dogs tend to be right or left pawed. So for Captain, if I'm to spin him this way, he's pretty fluid going that way. When he goes this way, he's a little stiffer, and you can see how he's a little easier to be distracted. So he has to work harder. You're right or left-handed. So you picking up a gallon of milk, that is way more natural if you're right-handed to do that with your right hand versus with your left hand. You can do it, it just might take a little more thought. I make coffee by a very complicated machine every morning. If I were to hurt my right hand and had to do everything with my left hand, I could do it, but it would take a lot longer. The other way that I like to describe right versus left pawedness for the dogs is if you were to take your hands and fold them like this, the way that you normally would do if you're just twiddling your thumbs, and then you go the other way. You move them over by one hand, one finger. It feels really weird. Another variation is crossing your arms and then going the other way. So I want you guys to try it in front of your computer screens. We're not watching you. I see you. Kidding. But try going in both directions and how muscularly that feels and how that feels maybe just wrong or off or weird. So when I'm asking a dog, Captain, touch, to spin going the direction that they're comfortable moving versus twirl the way that they're uncomfortable going, you can see that you might have to work a lot harder going that one direction versus the other. So just keep that in the back of your head while you're working with your dog. If going one way isn't working, try the other way and see if they're more successful. So treat on the nose. I'm going to turn him here. Yes, and as soon as he's all the way turned, and I'll turn sideways here so you can see. Nose. Yes, right there. So as he stops, there's a distraction outside, so you can see how his focus is gone. Nose to butt, yes, yes, and treat. Now what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try just touch instead of having the treat. So I'm going to no longer lure him with food. I have the treats in my hand here. Yes, good job. Yes. For some dogs, we might think that they might be looking at our cues with our hands. Captain isn't necessarily watching my hand. I want you to see what happens when I step forward. Cap, with just my foot. Oh, of course not. Oh, now you're not going to do it. That's fine. Spin, twirl. So he's watching my foot, not necessarily my hand. Because when I set him up for spin, because of the length of his body, I always step forward first and then bring my hand out, and that tends to be what he's watching. So when I step forward this way, even before I signal with my hand, he's already in the middle of that spin. So just be cognizant of what it is that your dog is watching, because it might not be, you might not be signaling them the way that you think you are. The other thing to keep in mind too is with Captain, if I step forward with my foot, he more often than not will offer a sit. Because I always step forward first before I bring up my hand. So for years, I thought this was my signal for sit. It's not. So be mindful of what your dog is watching. So for spin and twirl, I always send spin to the right, twirl to the left. And when you guys are getting better at this and you're starting to combine things, we can then, Captain, ready? Come through. Spin. Yes. Ready? Touch. Ready? Spin. Yes. Cap. Twirl. Good job. So you can start doing combining things once you're feeling pretty confident with these as individual tasks, then starting to string them together. Those will be some fun things for you guys to work on for the next week. We're going to move on to a couple of other videos, but if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and we'll get to you as soon as we can.